What's up, people? Punch here. So I'm going back to Quasimorph because 9.5 beta is currently what I'm playing right now, and there are a couple of things that will probably be happening in 1.0 release, though I'm not entirely sure. It just says coming soon to beta in my patch notes, but from what I've seen so far in the beta itself is that there are a couple of new things. As you've seen, there were a couple of new weapons like a sword, rocket launcher, new SMG, rifle, pistol, and a new organization that you can join and get a bunch of their different type of technology, their different type of armor and weapons like all the other ones, and that's TianMing. TianMing actually has different SMGs, rifles, and other stuff that would be higher caliber like 7.97 and even some 44s. But the main reason why I decided to go with TianMing besides being new was also because of the Shachong, which is essentially a 4-barrel rocket launcher that fires different rockets. Like there's caustic and there's one that's high explosive. I haven't really found anything else other than those two specific custom ammo types for that rocket launcher. And the other thing was I was able to try the new SMG and the new rifles they also added, which kind of look like Halo in some sense, kind of like the old assault rifle. But as you see from the picture here, there's like a Stinger rocket launcher that's a single one, the 4, then you have like, it looks like an assault rifle, and then the other one I know is a TianMing SMG. The other thing in the center is a saw blade launcher that fires a single shot. Then you have the pistol, and you have a couple other things. But I didn't really find all of that, and I didn't find a lot of different weapons either, besides some other stuff that probably wasn't on the actual list. And, of course, I didn't talk about point 9, which was the meat cage, which I will probably talk about a couple of things in this video, since I didn't really get into it. Mainly, it's going to be 9.5 and the new stuff with that. Still, point 9 was pretty big when it came down to the different implants and being able to amputate your different character and having him have, like, robotic arms and legs and having, like, specific abilities and even more buffs and debuffs for that. But we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that later on in the video. Mainly, it's going to be the new stuff with 9.5 in the beta and what I've seen so far. Getting into the game, they do have a couple of new things. For example, the Agony MAF, which is a submachine gun that you could find that does kind of remind me of the Halo assault rifle a little bit. The other thing they did was they changed the UI so it will actually show specific things that the weapons do, like knockback, incendiary, shredding, or whichever, and you could see the description for that the more you look into the weapon. Like I said earlier, there's a new organization called TianMing, and this is everything that they have. The first start to their actual organization, they give you the Sharon saw blade thrower, like I said earlier, a single shot that you reload. The Hundao, which is essentially an unwieldy sword that if you get accuracy up to 100, everybody dies. Everything dies. Even those stupid, what's the Centurion and the Equus, all of those guys get destroyed by the sword. As you can see in this predicament here that I'm currently in, my guy has an unwieldy amount of time trying to use this damn sword, and every once in a while the wait icon will pop up, probably meaning that the sword's too big for my character or he's having a tough time trying to use it. So being able to use morphine, I just go up and I smack him once, and that's all it takes. Though you can do series of hits, which is 2 or 3 times. I think it's 2 slashes with that one. And then the other one, which is single, but you have a higher accuracy to hit them when it's a single type of go. The other thing was they had a shotgun for TianMing called the Longhu. Have not messed with it yet, though it is something that I definitely want to try out and get with the different types of ammo that they currently have in the game, from slug to buckshot to dragon breath. And they also have these other types of like icons with an exclamation point and then kind of like a grid. It just means the model for that specific weapon is not out yet, and they have to release that into 9.5 or beyond. Once again, 9.5 is in beta. It's not a full thing. It's not on live servers yet, like it is for the meat cage and some of the other updates that came out. The Sharon, on the other hand, has 2 different types of discs that I use. The original, just normal disc, and then they have the poison disc that does poison damage when you hit them. The other thing I wanted to show here was the way that lasers, plasma, and other kind of like energy weapons look like. It actually goes a lot slower than the normal firing your bullets or even firing the saw blade launcher. Now, I get that they want to make them slower so it's a little bit more immersive because they're energy weapons. They're not like firing a projectile using explosives instead of a small cartridge, but rather just something that uses a battery and it's a directed energy weapon at somebody. The other thing when it comes down to the Sharon is that sometimes if you do decide to shoot the thing watch out because it will bounce back at you and sometimes decapitate your character like it did me about a couple of times when I used it. But I want to go ahead and talk about the patch notes in my notes that I have currently right now about what's going on with 9.5. In my notes right here, it says, coming soon to beta, 0.9 added a ton of augmentations and implants, now we're expanding everything around them. Augmentation department crafts augments and implants for you, provided you hold the right licenses, and boosts the chance of successfully extracting them from enemies, which will be later. This is not in the beta now, this will be coming soon. Another thing that will be coming soon is management department. At last, an expansion of the market mechanics. It's time to get a seat at the table, not just play someone else's pawn, take out a rival CEO, claim their chair, and steer a minor corporation yourself, speed up production, bring corporate allies on missions, and even change your corporation's type. They go on to talk about a couple of other things. For example, in orbit, discover hidden bases, trade shuttles ripe for looting, factions that, like you, might occasionally send gifts, on-floor mission events, expect spider nests, garden cocoons, hunter squads from factions you've angered, levels lacking key resources, pirate or police raids, and even worker uprisings. They also talk about new story missions coming soon to beta. Update 0.9.5 will add 4 new story missions that conclude the Civil Resistance arc. Moving on from coming soon to beta is already in beta. They actually have new Brahmphatoras, Flaros, and Hex Arc TianMing, which I think might be the TianMing type of Quasimorphs I have yet to see. They're probably going to destroy me either way. Jupiter will no longer be a safe backyard. The planet's moons are getting their own Brahmphatora. Brace for new enemies and loot tied to this Brahmphatora. Hexarch TianMing enters the war for solar system market dominance. UI overhaul, like I seen earlier or showed you a little bit earlier. The developers go on to say, over the last 6 months, we've audited almost every type of item, each one more unique and functional. Now we're reworking all tooltips to be shorter yet more informative. Medical items, for example, now show exactly which damage types they treat, and weapon traits can be viewed right in the tooltip. So we hope that now you will need less fact diving, which has always been kind of annoying when you're trying to figure out what weapon and what item to use for specific things. Like, for example, when you look at like a fractured leg, you have to use a splint for that because you have a higher chance of being able to heal that entirely, or having a bleeding type of wound, use a band-aid, or you use like something else like hydrogel for type of frost and even burns. You know how it kind of works. Everybody has to go and look stuff up on the wiki, and it's always kind of difficult to do that, so they're going to make it a little bit more easier for people that play the game. They also say, we're rebuilding how projectiles are handled, paving the way for genuine rocket launchers and explosive ammo. Expect even bigger booms beyond ballistics. Weapon traits are no longer tied to your weapon class. They're modular. We've also added many new ones. For example, heavy weapon can't attack if the clone moved this turn. An optical sight shifts a weapon's optimal range. Now, when it comes down to those two specific things, heavy weapon I kind of get because I did find something called the Mini Pig, which is a light machine gun. It fires 5-round bursts or does something called suppressive fire. That's 8. If you do that, you take a minus 20% accuracy hit or a minus 10 accuracy hit if you're trying to fire it, unless you're able to find a stable platform, because what it has on it is called bipod. If you go near something like maybe a barricade or a place you could put it, I think that accuracy comes back and even increases, or maybe even gets a little bit higher depending upon your class. It goes on to say weapon stats have been adjusted to accommodate the new traits and widen player options. Some melee weapons now deal different damage types per attack mode. For instance, the Mangala Toxic Knife can now have an option to pierce with penetrating damage as well as strike with poison. The patch is slated to hit the stable branch in the second half of July, meaning that I think it's going to go for like a couple of weeks, and then it'll come right out into the stable platform of Quasimorph. Like I was showing a little bit off earlier when it comes down to the energy weapons, this is called the Omega 2, which is called a plasma generator, and the thing is very slow when you shoot it. Another thing to point out when it comes down to the weapon itself is that it takes 4 energy to fire a single shot. So make sure that you have to reload the damn thing to fire it, otherwise it won't even go off or even make a sound. They have a bunch of different things like pierce through, armor pen, incendiary, overclocking, which I don't know what overclocking actually is, but one of the guns I do like a lot, though it might be a very old gun, is the Enlightenment MK. And the reason why I like this thing is because I think with optical sight, I'm able to go and kill multiple different units that are all like lined together. Then of course you have the Starlight, which is essentially this like hacksaw laser, and they also changed the Vibroblade. Vibroblade didn't have any type of like energy. You would never need energy cells to use the thing. It just had its own kind of like pick me up and swing me around and smack stuff. Now you have to use energy in order for it to work, but I don't know if it gives you like a better property of slashing damage or even some type of like energy type of effect when you use it. But in terms of the beta, it seems like they did a lot of changing to the UI. A lot of the weapons got changed for piercing and penetration damage. Even the different types of custom ammunition from Dragon Breath and Slug got changed. A lot of stuff is changing with 9.5. And of course, getting my head blown up by 2 lasers down the southern portion of the actual level obviously still happens in normal and unfair difficulty, just more so in unfair because, you know, it's unfair. That's exactly how you play it. But the other thing was, when it comes down to the meat cage, once again, augmentation and implants, being able to cut your arm off and be able to put like a bionic arm or leg, and a couple other things from 4 new melee weapons, 9 ranged ones, 1 hat, 35 augments, and 21 implants. But that's all I got for the 9.5 beta so far. There's probably going to be more coming out, and once again, 1.0 will be happening very soon. That being said, I've been One Nut Punch, and this has been the 9.5 beta for Quasimorph. Thanks for watching as per usual, and I'll see you in the next one.